The Daily Signal is coming to you live from the Republican National Convention in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. We're joined now by former Congressman Lee Zeldin, former candidate for governor. Thank you, sir. I'm from Utica, New York myself, and so it's always good to talk to a fellow New Yorker.
That's great to be with you. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So we have heard so much throughout the course of the week, including you yourself last night on the big stage, about how the Republican Party is unifying, also appealing to different segments of the American population that maybe traditionally didn't support Republicans in the past. You have some firsthand experience in your own race. Tell us why that is so important.
There are longtime Democratic voters who are burned by Democratic policies, and they know it. They have important issues that are priorities for them that are more important than being just a blind, partisan, loyal Democratic voter. So they're open-minded, but they're not just going to naturally come around on their own. We have to work for it. We have to show up. We have to talk to them about our solutions on those issues and earn their support. And don't assume just because you earn their support in one election that you have it for the next one. It's about earning support and keeping that support. Right now, I am encouraging Republican candidates, whether you're running for president or you're running for a down ballot race, that we get into blue areas, get uncomfortable. Don't just talk to people who are always with you. Don't just talk to your strongest supporters. It's time to talk to these Democrats in blue areas. I mean, we went to New York City. We see President Trump now. South Bronx, Detroit, Philadelphia, D.C., all in recent weeks. President Trump can keep that up, and Senator Vance, our next vice president, is able to keep that up. If our candidates statewide are getting into cities more, we can really grow the party a lot over the next few months.
Have you noticed that there are particular issues that are on the minds of New Yorkers that you think may make them more open-minded to a Trump-Vance ticket?
People want the border secure. They're tired of seeing their priority placed on people who are illegally in the country. They want safe streets, and they're seeing these Democratic policies prioritizing criminals over law-abiding Americans, and they're so deeply disturbed by it. They want their kid to have access to a quality education. Where they're trapped right now in a poor-performing public school, they want their kid to be able to go to that charter school that's a half a mile down the block, where kids are graduating, going to college, being successful. They want prosperity. They want it. They want a higher quality of life for themselves, their family, their community. That list goes on from energy independence to foreign policy and more, where conservatives are on the right side of these issues that are important issues for these longtime Democratic voters. But you have to ask them, what is most important to you? And when they tell you, then offer your solutions. Don't pander. Don't try to win them over by saying if the person's black or Hispanic or Asian, I love you because I love black people, I love Hispanic people, I love Asian people. No, ask that person, what is your most important issue? And then when they say that it's crime, talk about your support of law enforcement. Talk about how you believe that prosecutors should prosecute. Talk to them about how you don't think laws like in New York we have cashless bail, they shouldn't be enacted. Instead, we should be prioritizing law-abiding Americans.
In the 2022 election, when you were on the ballot, the Republicans who won their congressional races really made up the difference between Republican control of the House versus Democrat control of the House. Many people pointed to New York as a bright spot in that election. What lessons did you learn from that experience? And as you look forward to this fall and they're defending those seats, what needs to be on their minds?
In New York, we have 5 House Republican freshmen in districts that Joe Biden won, but the polling has since flipped. President Trump is now up in these districts, and some of them drastically. So Anthony D'Esposito, for example, he's the 4th Congressional District of New York. Joe Biden won that district by something like 14.5, 16.5 points. Well, now President Trump is polling up by like 7 or 8 points. Big swing. We could go on offense. Allison Esposito running in the 18th Congressional District against an incumbent, Pat Ryan. Michael Petrie running in the 3rd Congressional District against Tom Suozzi, an incumbent. So we can actually expand our majority in these suburbs, even in blue states. Especially in blue states, we will decide whether or not Republicans are in the majority and just how big that majority is. The path to the majority doesn't run through the reddest district. The path to the majority runs through our success in the bluest district that a Republican can win. And right now, a lot of them are in the blue states.
What would you say are the biggest challenges that New Yorkers are facing under the Kathy Hochul administration? What are the local issues that our audience nationally needs to know about in your state?
It's about hitting your breaking point. Why are so many New Yorkers heading to the Carolinas, Tennessee, Texas, Florida? What is it that these other states have that New York doesn't have? What is going on in New York that is so much worse than these other states? And what's making people hit their breaking point is that they're looking elsewhere and saying, if I go live in Florida, I will be living freer, safer, more prosperous. That decision of hitting a breaking point and fleeing is not about putting a state in timeout for a few months. It is a permanent decision to leave behind a family, leave behind what used to be a future, to move somewhere else where they believe that there's more opportunity. One-party Democratic rule in New York City, one-party Democratic rule in New York State, and laws getting passed at all levels of government that prioritize the person who's illegally in the country. Free this, free that, incentivizing and rewarding people coming to New York, housing, education, healthcare, money, and more. There are these Democrats who are watching this and saying, you know what, I can't believe that I voted for that. Yes, they voted for it, and they realize that they voted for it. They want to vote differently for those who are staying in the state, and for others who are looking elsewhere, they say, you know what, I've given up. Too many people every single day are deciding it's time to give up.
Yeah, I mean, I remember the days, having grown up in New York, where you had Republicans win statewide, obviously for the governor's office with George Pataki, or Senate, Al D'Amato. I mean, so can be done. It's obviously a challenge, but appealing to those on those issues and to different groups of people is critically important. One of the areas that Republicans have concentrated, your former colleagues in the House of Representatives, are on some of the challenges with election integrity and ensuring that we have robust laws. The Heritage Foundation does an evaluation, a scorecard of states. New York falls pretty low on that list. What's your message to individuals and the way that they can perhaps have an impact, either as poll watchers, poll workers, to ensure that our elections are run fairly?
First thought, you just said it. Sign up, be a poll worker, be a poll watcher. We need people to not just be volunteering on Election Day. We need people signing up before Election Day and after Election Day. We need lawyers willing to volunteer their time. Listen, even if you have to get paid, maybe there are ways in your particular area, in your state. There are jobs that are available. You don't have to just volunteer, but listen, there's only so many jobs that are available, and we're relying on volunteers. When we are fighting for what we believe is the right election integrity laws in your particular state, fight as effectively as you can to enact the changes that we need. But when it comes time for the administration of an election and the laws are set, don't be foolish and boycott any law you disagree with, because it is only going to result in you being further behind after the election, losing races that you're desperate to win. We won't be saving the country if we are losing Pennsylvania because we refuse to engage in universal mail-in balloting. Guaranteed, we will wake up on Election Day, not November 6th. When we wake up on November 5th, we will have already lost Pennsylvania if we don't lean into universal mail-in balloting. We will have already lost Nevada if we don't lean into ballot harvesting, which has already been legalized. So my message is, in your states, while you fight for voter ID, and I believe it should be in all 50 states, while you fight against any bad ideas like universal mail-in balloting, when it is the law, do it better than the Democrats so that the Democrats regret legalizing it in the first place and they would not dare trying to legalize it anywhere else ever again.
And sir, one final question for you. On the minds of so many people here in Milwaukee is what transpired on Saturday. Obviously, you have I think, perspective on this, given your own run for office. What were your thoughts when you saw that transpire at the Trump rally in Butler, Pennsylvania? And what has the mood been among the people that you've interacted with here in Milwaukee?
I mean, first thought is President Trump alive? Then is President Trump safe? Is everyone else safe? Did they get the shooter or shooters? And then how is this possible? For a country, we came within milliseconds, millimeters. It's crazy to think how close we were from a very dark and uncertain disaster to affect us. President Trump dodged a bullet, but our entire country really dodged a bullet. There are calls on the left to unify. There are calls on the right to unify. People are saying on both sides of the aisle, we settle our scores at the ballot box. That's all right. But the reality is, and I'm going to be candid, and I'm not going to sugarcoat it, I'm not going to ignore it. If the shoe was on the other foot and the assassin's bullet was aimed at President Biden instead of President Trump would have already been indicted as if he was the one who was on that rooftop pulling the trigger. Everyone would be blaming President Trump. There would be intense pressure on all Republicans to either admit their own responsibility and to also blame President Trump for it. So we're not going to ignore what would have been happening from the Democratic Party and from the left-wing media. Should we unify? Always. Should we settle our score at the ballot box? Every single time. We'd never want to see political violence. We want a safe election. We want a free and fair election. We want candidates to be willing to step up, volunteers to be willing to step up, voters ready and willing to go to the polls. Thank God President Trump was alive. First and foremost, that is the initial thought that comes to all of our minds. And also, thank God for President Trump to be courageous and brave in that moment, to have the instincts of wanting to stand up back on his feet and to fight.
And to be here for all the first 3 nights of the convention in his seat, so all of the convention goers and the American people could see that he's ready to go. I mean, he's not going to let this knock him down. Thank you for sharing that perspective. I appreciate it. Congressman Lee Zeldin, thank you so much for spending time with the Daily Signal.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll keep tabs on what's happening in New York, along with all the other 49 states. We are going to be back with more interviews from the Republican National Convention momentarily. Stay tuned to the Daily Signal. I'm Rob Bluey, signing off for now.